in recent months, there has been a push, and I've made my voice known on it, that Mike Leach should be in the College Football Hall of Fame. To be in the College Football Hall of Fame from a coaching aspect, you have to have won 60% of your games as a head coach. Mike Leach is less than half a percentage point away from that number, and they don't round up. And the argument generally is, one, he died before his coaching career was over. He was set to come back as Mississippi State's head coach. And also that his contributions to the game outweigh the half percentage point, and that he was never really the head coach of a great program. Texas Tech, Washington State, Mississippi State, winning 60% of your games would be juggernaut status at those schools, and he never got to those figures. And the College Football Hall of Fame says that it is not going to budge on its stance. Okay, understand. And the reason I bring this up is because Les Miles, the former LSU, Oklahoma State, Kansas head coach, has sued LSU, the NCAA, and the College Football Hall of Fame for the decision to vacate 37 of his team's wins from 2012 to 2015. They had an ineligible player that was found out after the fact, and they took away 37 wins from 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. And in those seasons, they finished 12th in the AP poll, or 12th in the coaches poll, 14th in the coaches poll, and 17th in the coaches poll. Now, they did go 7-5 in 2014. But they had winning records in all of those seasons. And if they hadn't vacated those wins, his career record would be 145-73, which is a 66.5% winning percentage. By vacating the 37 games that they won, his winning percentage goes down to 59.7, which makes him ineligible to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. And I think that it's an interesting argument from Les Miles, because essentially he is arguing, one, that he never got the opportunity to plead his case, which is the second consecutive day we talked about a coach suing because they never got a chance to plead their case. But then also, one of the things that he's essentially alleging is that they got to the number 37 because that gets him below the 60% mark for the College Football Hall of Fame, therefore making him ineligible. Now, on the surface, you could, and maybe you could, or you should argue that if the same set of circumstances is applied to Mike Leach, and there are many that believe that those criteria to make the College Football Hall of Fame should be done away with, and that Mike Leach was undoubtedly a College Football Hall of Famer, despite being less than half a percentage point away from qualifying, that you could argue that Les Miles deserves the same treatment, right? That he's 59.7% away after the vacated wins and doesn't qualify. Now, I think it's easy to point out why there's not this strong push to put Les Miles into the College Football Hall of Fame. With Mike Leach, you have somebody who's viewed as this eccentric, kind of fun, affable, lovable guy who's undeniably a college football offensive genius. And in Les Miles' case, you have somebody who is widely viewed as eccentric but not lovable. I think the overwhelming majority of viewpoints on Les Miles was that he was kind of a goofball to the point of like being detrimental to his team. Now, he won a national championship and did something that Mike Leach never even got close to doing. At the same time, Les Miles had jobs at schools that were significantly better programs. LSU and Oklahoma State are better than any of the three jobs that Mike Leach ever had. And Kansas is not. And things didn't go very well for Les Miles at Kansas. But he also got fired at Kansas after it came out that he's a bit of a creep with female staffers. And I think that's part of the idea of like, hey, we're not going to pound the table for Les Miles to be included in the College Football Hall of Fame. At the same time, Mike Leach has a skeleton in his closet. Now, I think people view it, first of all, it's drastically different. There's a difference in being inappropriate sexually and the idea that putting a player who said he got a concussion in a dark shed are two different things, and they are. But Mike Leach got fired from a job for mistreatment of players, and yet we still bound the table. I will be the hardest drummer. Mike Leach deserves to be in the College Football Hall of Fame. At the same time, Les Miles won a national championship, played in another one. And I think that should mean something. Now, I have no idea of whether or not that LSU, the NCAA, and College Football Hall of Fame conspired to pick the exact number of games that would make Les Miles ineligible for the College Football Hall of Fame. I don't know if that is a coincidence or something more sinister. I have no idea. It would lead me to believe that, like, hey, we simply deleted the wins you had when you used an ineligible player. And if you had gone 500 in those games, this wouldn't ever be an issue. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. But I do think that if in fear of being a hypocrite, I think if you are going to pound the table based strictly on on-field results, if you want Mike Leach to be included in the Hall of Fame, do you also then have to include Les Miles? I think yes. If you include off-the-field stuff, no. I think it would be very quick, very easy to say, like, hey, there were some things that it just no. That there are just some things that should preclude you from being viewed as a legend of the sport, being enshrined in the College Football Hall of Fame. And when your last stop, you go 3-18, including an 0-9 start to your second season before you got fired because you were involved in improper conduct with students at the college you worked at. It's a little more difficult case to make for Les Miles. But I do think, and I guess I don't know how I feel about this. Should games that happened before ineligible players were found out, before NCAA sanctions come into play, should they matter towards the College Football Hall of Fame? Because on one hand, if you say yes, you're essentially incentivizing cheating because he's got a slam dunk record at 145 and 73 if you include games before sanctions. On the other hand, if you say no, you're pretending as if those things didn't happen. I don't know the right or wrong answer there. But I feel like if you're going to argue that 59.4% for Mike Leach should get him into the College Football Hall of Fame, that 59.7% for Les Miles should get him into the College Football Hall of Fame. Now, I don't feel great about. I think it's probably. I agree with the sentiment that Les Miles was a buffoon and probably cost his team more games than he won them. But ultimately, the headset rested on his head. It was his responsibility. Whether the win was a win or a loss was a loss, he got credit for it. He won a national championship, went to another one, and was probably the worst national championship game ever played. But that's neither here nor there. Won a national title. So at risk of not being a hypocrite, I think Les Miles has a case for the College Football Hall of Fame. I don't know that he has a case for suing LSU, NCAA, and the College Football Hall of Fame for saying, hey, I think you guys conspired to keep me out of this. I doubt that happened. But I could understand from his perspective of if he feels like he's deserving of that accolade, and it just conveniently comes out to the number that makes me ineligible to reach that, I could understand why that would really piss you off. But I think Les Miles might have a case for the College Football Hall of Fame if you're just counting on-field stuff. If you're including off-field stuff, I have no problem with that. I'm of the belief that like Cam Newton shouldn't have won the Heisman Trophy because I'm supposed to believe that your dad asked for $180,000 from Mississippi State and you went to Auburn for free. I believe off-the-field stuff matters. I also believe that if we're counting off-the-field stuff, that there are probably some people in the College Football Hall of Fame or who will someday be in the College Football Hall of Fame that do not deserve to be there. That's another can of worms for another day. But strictly on the field, between the white lines, I think if the argument is you should round up for Mike Leach, I think you have to say you should round up for Les Miles too. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content we're pumping out. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. Goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Daily Huddle.